And so the goal of our club is to really take action on issues. It's in the name, Environmental Solutions Club. There's a lot of clubs and like other organizations that they raise awareness about issues. But as a club, our mission is to really take action locally and solve the issues in ways that we can do. And so you'll see the different forms that it's taken in the later slides. So one of our major projects was Project Heart. So before the pandemic began, we were working with local restaurants to try to convince them to use more sustainable takeout containers, like compostables, and also reduce the use of plastic in takeout in general. However, when the pandemic hit, this became kind of unfeasible as many restaurants were struggling to even stay open. And so trying to get them to use more expensive compostable takeout supplies was pretty much impossible. However, at the same time, plastic waste was increasing as restaurants resorted to takeout orders only, and so they're doing their business solely through takeout, which meant an increase in plastic waste. And so when we met with the local restaurant owners to just try to get an understanding of their situation, we realized we could help them adjust to the increase in takeout orders and also promote sustainability by donating compostable takeout supplies that they needed. So we launched Project Heart, which stands for Help the Environment, Assist Restaurant Takeout, and that's a clever acronym that I came up myself.
How did you come up with the acronym, by the way?
Yeah, well, I was like brainstorming, and then like I just suddenly I was piecing it together. Like, okay, we need to aid restaurant takeout, help the environment, and then like I think it had Earth originally, but something didn't work out super well. So I don't know, it just came into my brain.
So we originally discussed and got into the local newspaper to try and gain more awareness within the community. And then from there, we relied on crowdsourcing to gather funds and donations from the local community to help out our local restaurants. And from there, we were able to purchase 3,000 recycled paper bags, 1,400 compostable containers, and 400 compostable cup holders to essentially allow restaurants to survive and make that transition over to more compostable, more green means to conduct their business.
What was that process like meeting with the restaurant owners?
Yeah, so it was a little bit weird because it was also really hard to contact them because pretty much every time we met them, they were either like really busy, because it's always like during their working hours. So what we did was we just like got their phone number and contacts, and then we called them like during their off time to like tell them about our project and also ask them like what supplies they needed. But overall, they were like, none of them were resistant. Some of them were confused, like they didn't understand that we were trying to help them. But once they figured out that we were giving them like free compostable takeout supplies, they were totally open to it.
Yeah, especially the initial meets that we had, we went door to door to try and discuss with them.
Alright, now I'm going to go over some environmental effects of polystyrene. Polystyrene, if you don't, most of you probably don't know this, but it's actually, styrofoam is like the branded name of polystyrene, so it's just the same thing as styrofoam. One effect would be that, like, as the polystyrene can't be recycled or composted, then, like, in relation to takeout containers, when you have a takeout container and it has food scraps in it, it goes into the landfill, it decomposes anaerobically, and this process of anaerobic decomposition by bacteria and other organisms breaks down the food without use of oxygen, and instead this emits methane, which is a greenhouse gas 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So even a small amount of this can be harmful for the greenhouse gas emissions. And another impact, there's many impacts, but just one last impact is that styrofoam breaks down into many small pieces really easily, as the structure is like very lightweight. And if you compare it to like a harder plastic, like a water bottle, a reusable water bottle, it's much more like hard and firm than a polystyrene plastic. And also, polystyrene plastic is like one of the few plastics that, like I mentioned, it can't be recycled or anything else. Some of the plastics can be recycled, but unfortunately, polystyrene can't. So that's important for why we wanted to ban polystyrene specifically.
I just want to quickly ask you, the clear containers that you get with takeout food, I think that they have to be be recycled, is that correct?
Yes, so it's really important that your plastic food container is completely clean and dry, because if there's too much food in it, like it can't be recycled. So like there's this thing where a lot of our plastics get shipped over to China, and they require like a low contamination level. And so if there's like a lot of food in it, it can't really be recycled. Yeah. Okay. So once we realized that a lot of restaurants in Orinda were using styrofoam takeout containers, we knew we had to take action. So the first thing we did was we did some more research into polystyrene bans. And one thing that came up was a Contra Costi ban that went into effect like in May 2020. You can go to the previous slide, this one. And so we saw this and we were like, oh, so it's already been banned in Contra Costa. These restaurant owners are just breaking the law. So what we did is that we printed out a bunch of these flyers and went to all the restaurant owners and said, hey, you know, there's a ban that went into effect last year. You need to stop using polystyrene. But it wasn't until after that we realized that polystyrene, or this ordinance, was only applied to unincorporated communities, which are basically areas outside of city limits, so not cities like Orinda. So that meant we just done that all for like no reason, but it's okay. So, next slide. So then that meant we had to go through our local city council for Orinda, and the way we did that is that we went to the public forum session of the city council meeting, and during this public forum session, which is available to like the public and like the community, we were able to talk about why we thought there should be a polystyrene ban. And fortunately, the council members were very receptive, especially Mayor Worth, and she set up a meeting with us separately from the city council to discuss how the whole legislative process would work and how we could get polystyrene ban for Orinda. Then after that, she submitted our proposal as like an official agenda item for the city council to like vote and discuss on. So that meant during the next city council meeting, we actually got to present again in like a more formal manner to like try to convince the city council to vote on this item. And fortunately, they all
That
agreed.
presentation was.
Yeah, this was like from that presentation. And fortunately, they all really liked our presentation, and they all agreed, and they all voted to pursue a polystyrene ordinance, which was really exciting at the time. And so then, for like the next couple months, it was all about like drafting the legislation and like getting the specific details. And we didn't actually draft the legislation because that was done by the city lawyer, but we got to participate in like the discussions behind like what we wanted in the ordinance. So one of the things we talked about was like the extent of the ban, and, like who we wanted the ban to apply to. So we made sure to focus it on like food vendors, so like restaurants and food trucks, and also retail sales, so like the sale of like polystyrene takeout containers in Safeway or something like that. And then we also talked about certain exemptions, and one of the major exemptions we had was prepackaged food items. So you may have seen like in the grocery stores, the raw meat trays, those use polystyrene. And the reason why we exempted that was that it's packaged outside of Orinda, right? So it's not something the city council can really control and be too difficult to like regulate. So that was one of our major exemptions. And overall, pretty long process, but it was really interesting. It really got us interested in policy overall. And the ban went into effect in August, and there was a 6-month grace period that just ended in February for restaurants to exhaust any like polystyrene takeout supplies that they had. So it is in effect now.
Something we want to emphasize, however, is that you don't have to make these large, grandiose legislative changes. There's stuff that you can do individually or within your own school. So something we've recently implemented coming back to Miramonte ever since from COVID is the volunteer bin monitoring system, which essentially implements individuals to ensure that waste and management is being properly done. Sorting, especially in regards to recycling and composting, if it gets completed properly, then all that waste isn't going to go directly to the landfill and then contribute more to climate change. But something I wanted to talk about was some individual projects that some individuals in our club are doing. One of them is doing a project in regards to energy conservation, so altering the light fixtures within classrooms to something more energy efficient in order to save energy overall. Another project that someone else is doing is in regards to algae bloom, where he developed a website in order to keep track of algae blooms, which are toxic in regards to water and also help contribute to climate change.
Alright, so essentially, why did we do this? And I'm just gonna briefly discuss, my personal kind of just passion for the environment. So, I've always kind of been interested in like nature and wildlife since I was like a young kid. So as I got older, these environmental issues became more and more interesting in me, and I wanted to do something like learn more and like try to take action. So that's kind of how I got more into taking action for protection of the environment. And I think that everyone should do this because if one person does something, it's not going to be as effective as many people. However, often one person can also make a big difference because if you have one person, like maybe it will inspire more people to do. Like some people in the other classes had started their project and they had friends and other people in their community to help them with your project. And I think when I heard that, I thought it was super cool to see like people in the community kind of working together to help the environment.
For me personally, getting involved, what made me kind of shift and want to become more active in regards to climate change was seeing the international impact of all this waste that, especially in regards to the United States with anti-consumerism, what happens. So essentially traveling to places like Rio de Janeiro in Brazil or traveling to Vietnam, you see the juxtaposition of the natural environment, the jungle, the nature, being overrun essentially by football fields and mountains of garbage that the United States exports to other nations. So what I wanted to do, because those places don't have the infrastructure to deal with all that waste and management, what I wanted to do was get active domestically to ensure that we can ensure that all that garbage doesn't leave the United States, and we can help limit it because we have the infrastructure here.
Yeah, that's a good point. And for me, this question kind of has like two different answers. There's the like what got me motivated, what inspired me to do this, and then why it is important for all of us to do things like this. So for me, I grew up in like Washington area, and which has lots of nice hikes and stuff. Then I also grew up in Singapore, and there's some really good opportunities to like go trekking in the jungle and things like that. And all these places and all these like opportunities to see nature just really like made me fall in love with like the natural world and like what made me want to protect it. So seeing all these like horrible like environmental impacts like wildfires, sea level rise, plastic pollution, and all these different things that are harming the planet really moved me and made me want to do something about it. But I feel like for these different, like all these various like environmental impacts and like climate change, many people, there's like two types of reactions. Many people see these kind of things and they think, oh, there's nothing I can do about it, or oh, it's hopeless, like nothing matters. That's a reaction many people have. And I think part of the reason is the lack of understanding, or like not fully seeing how our human actions contribute to like these larger issues of climate change and things like that. So that's why it's really crucial, and I'm so glad you guys are doing this Take Action project in your 7th grade classrooms, because you guys are getting an opportunity to like learn about how your actions contribute to climate change and also do something about it. And then that leads into the other reaction, which is what I felt, and that's wanting to do something about these issues and try to stop it and protect the environment. So for me, it started at a very individual level. I first started just by like bringing a reusable fork to school, bringing a reusable water bottle. And so like these really simple things, like I started really small, but then I started like pestering my friends to do the same. And then they liked the idea. So then we formed a club to try to convince other students in the community to reduce plastic waste and things like that. And then we started pestering restaurant owners and then the city council. So it seems like I had this all planned out from the beginning, but I did not. I started really small at the individual level, and I just worked my way up. And I think that's what you guys should really do with your Take Action project, is start small, start with something that you know you can change, like yourself and maybe your family members or your friends. And then once you see the opportunity to take the next step, that's when you move on to like larger things. So you try to expand. So I really hope you guys use this opportunity for your Take Action project to try to change things. And Yeah, that's our presentation.